Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Veg Grower Podcast. My name's Richard and each week I share with you my journey of growing all my own food in my allotment and my kitchen garden here in Littlehampton on the south coast of the United Kingdom. Now I believe we should be growing at least some of our own food, and I want to try and encourage and inspire you to do just that. Now coming up this week, our August seed of the month is Spinach Medania, and I'm tackling hedge trimming and grey water experiments in the kitchen garden, harvesting a runaway courgette down on the allotment and cooking roasted tomato and basil pasta. Plus we're going to be reviewing Bob Flowerjew's The Gourmet Gardener. So let's get growing. Well, I'm out in the kitchen garden now. It's the beginning of August and that means it's time for our seed of the month. And the seed that I'm sowing today is a spinach called Medania. Now I grow spinach a lot. It's a really tasty, useful vegetable, used a lot in the kitchen. But Medania, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but Medania is a really vigorous, reliable spinach. And it's got these really large dark green leaves that are just full of some really lovely flavour. Now I do find that August to be a great time to sow spinach. The worst of the summer heat has passed and we can grow these seeds quite comfortably at this time of year, and hopefully if we successfully sow them they'll give us crops right through the winter. Now I'm sowing these seeds in my plug plant trainers that I've dibbed a hole about 2 centimetres deep and dropped a single seed in it. And these will live in my shed until they germinate, which will be about 7 to 14 days. And then we'll start hardening them off and get them out into the garden. But they don't just have to be sown indoors. You can actually sow these directly in the ground where they are to grow. Just simply drill in the ground about 1 centimetre or 2 deep, pot a few seeds in that drill, backfill and water in well, and that could be absolutely fine. We'll need to thin them out once they start growing to about 20-25 centimetres of space between each plant, or if you're like me, you're planting them in plug plants, then we're going to give them about 20 to 25 centimetres of space between each plant when we plant them out. It's good to do quite a few of these. Because I'm mixing my garden up a bit, I'm sowing these in different areas, so it works quite well for what I'm doing. Now, generally speaking, care for these is pretty easy. Keep them weed free. They do like water, so make sure they get plenty of moisture, plenty of water, and they should be fine. I know that's very hard to do at the moment, but a good mulch will go a long way as well. And then we just leave them to grow, keep them weed free. If they do need a feed, it's a high nitrogen feed because this is a leafy crop, and that's really what we want. Leaves, lots of leaves, so high nitrogen feeds such as chicken manure is the great feed for them. Now we can almost start picking the outer leaves almost immediately as soon as they are growing. They are best when they are young, and they are absolutely delicious and tasty when they are young in my opinion. But the trouble is if we pick a lot of them when they're young, it doesn't leave many leaves for the rest of the plant to grow, and that's what we want. We want the rest of the plant to grow nice, big and strong. So what we do with that is we just pick a few leaves from all plants and leave the rest to grow. Leave them big and strong, and as they get bigger and bigger they will be fine. The thing is with spinach, what I find is the more you pick the more it grows. So as long as we're not too rambunctious in the beginning, we don't pick loads in the beginning, we can get some good strong plants that will grow right through the winter. But along with that, I do recommend just sowing a few seeds every week from now on until September, just to make sure that we can spread out the harvests for a longer period. Now spinach for me is great to use in salads, obviously, wilted into pasta, great use for it, used in curries and sagaloo and things like that. It's absolutely delicious and I really do enjoy growing spinach and cooking with it. Now, if you are looking to buy any seeds, then you can find links on my blog post for this episode from Premier Seeds Direct, in which I have an affiliate link for you as well. So please do go check them out. Premier Seeds Direct are my preferred seed supplier. Very reasonable prices for large quantities of seeds, and I do think they are very, very good. Now, that's not all that's been going on in the kitchen garden. One of the big things that I've noticed is that nesting season is over. Now, this may not be something to celebrate, but it means that I can now trim back my trees and bushes without the risk of hurting any birds or destroying any birds. It's technically illegal to do that anyway. So I've noticed I had birds nesting in my blackberry and tayberry bushes this year. So I haven't been able to trim them back or anything with that. And they've got rather unruly, especially with an invasive climate that we seem to have going on here. So this week I've trimmed them back quite considerably, and that has opened them up and looking much better. I do have to keep doing more because we're looking at really sort of cutting these right back and redoing the area. It's one of those times when we need to stand back and have a look at what we're doing, and that's one of the things that we're going to do. But I've cut them back quite nicely and it's tidied up that area much better. Now, something else that I am doing, I've realised just how much grey water we waste that goes down the drain. I spoke about this last week, but I've been looking at grey water and I've been trying to figure out if there is a way we could clean our grey water so that we could use it much more in the garden. Now, one of the things I've been thinking is aquatic plants, trying to keep it natural. So I've started a bit of an experiment where I've put a few aquatic plants, a water lettuce and water mint, into a container with some grey water from our bath. And I just want to see whether or not it cleans it up, and then I'm going to get the water tested and see if it will work. Now, I've been looking into this a lot because I think if we're going to get more summers like we have had this year, then I think there's a good chance we're going to have to look at how we use our water, especially our wastewater. And I've studied and been watching videos on people who are using reed beds to clean wastewater, and I think this is going to be something we're going to have to look at more and more at. I spoke about this a bit last week, but I'm really looking into it full pelt now, and looking forward to seeing how much of a difference this makes. The thing is with bath water, shower water, grey water basically, it can contain soaps, salts and other contaminants that we really don't want going into our garden, especially on our edible leaves or roots. So this is why I'm running this experiment, just to see if it works. Now, one of the final things that I want to talk about from the kitchen garden. So I've had veggie pods for quite a few years, and I use them mostly for growing some salad crops, and they've been very successful for that. Now, over the years we've always eaten a lot of salads, but this year salads have been the basis of many of my meals. Really enjoying them, actually, I have to say. And what we found, or what I found I should say, I have lost 1.5 stone in 2 months, just purely, well, based around eating salads. A few other changes have been made, not overeating, etc. But I am very pleased with myself for losing 1.5 stone through eating salads. Now, one of the things I've always said is that grow your own is a healthy way to produce food. We produce healthy food that is better for us. And I think this just goes to prove that we can also use grow your own from doing things like managing our weight. And this is, again, something I'm really proud of doing for myself, but also something that I want to keep doing moving forward. So growing more salads, harvesting more salads more regularly. Not that we struggle, we grew plenty of salads and we continue growing plenty of salads, but we need to think about what we're going to do in the winter. There's plenty of winter salads that we're going to eat, so we want to keep that going as well. It really is a healthy way to live every day, this grow your own like, isn't it? Right, well, that is it from the kitchen garden today. I'm going to head on down to the allotment and I'll meet you down there in just a moment. In the meantime, let's find out what's been going on in the Supporters Club this week. Well, I hope you're enjoying this podcast so far. If you are, then please rate and review on your podcast provider. It really helps other growers find the show. Now, added to that, if you would also like to support the podcast even more, then please consider becoming a member of the Veg Grower Podcast Supporters Club. For just £5 a month, you receive exclusive behind-the-scenes podcasts that give you more of an idea of what's going on here at the Veg Grower Podcast HQ. Along with that, you will also receive our monthly seed pack, which contains a collection of seeds that I've carefully selected to be sown in that very month. And along with the seeds, you also get a copy of our mini newspaper, which gives you instructions on how to sow those seeds, as well as a monthly jobs checks list and other seeds to sow, and along with space for your own notes. Now, over this last week, we've been busy getting the August pack sent out, and this month it contains the following seeds: mustard, kohlrabi, oregano, depending on how you pronounce it, cabbage, mooli radish, and overwintering onion. I think that's quite a good collection of seeds to sow throughout this month. Now, if that sounds like something you would be interested in, then please head to thevegegardenpodcast.co.uk to find out more and sign up. We would love to have you there. Right, back to the gardening. Well, I'm down the allotment now, and I am still really pleased with what's going on the allotment. It is the first weekend of August, and yeah, a lot of things are starting to look a little bit sad. The blackberry leaves are turning red, the potatoes are starting to turn yellow. It is a sign that the summer season is coming to an end. I know we don't want to be wishing away summer, but it is a sign that everything is starting to change once again. However, that doesn't mean we're not getting harvests. We are still getting plenty of harvests. And one thing that surprised me this week is my courgettes. Now, courgettes are one of those plants that we seem to get loads of. They're a very, very productive plant. The general sort of understanding is that you only really need 2 plants for a family. I mean, I don't necessarily attend to that, but it just goes to show that they are very, very productive. I like my courgettes, so we are pretty much getting a courgette every couple of days at the moment. It means we have to be a bit imaginative with what we do with courgettes, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, what surprised me this week is I've got a courgette plant that is grown in last year's straw bale garden area. That courgette plant has actually been doing really well. I'm very pleased. It's growing strongly. It's produced quite a bit of fruit. But what's happened this week is I had a courgette on there that, well, it was nearly ready one day, but when I came back the following day, it had grown so large it was almost too big. It was almost a marrow. Now, this happens with courgettes. It is a known thing. If you leave a courgette for too long, all of a sudden you get something that is too big. So you do have to keep on top with courgettes, pick them regularly. They are very productive, as I've already said, but they are very tasty. And the more you pick, the more you get. And I think they are best when they're small as well. So I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining in the slightest, because we have got a good, large, probably about a kilogram courgette from that one plant this week, but we've still got plenty of smaller ones which we're going to be using a lot as well. Now, along with the courgettes, I've also been harvesting some of my runner beans, and I've got to admit I was a little flummoxed at first because I checked my bean plants, see if any were ready, and I found some runner beans. We've been picking French beans last week, and this week it was the runner beans, except I thought they were French beans. So I had a rummage round for where my labels are, and the label has gone missing. Now, this is a little annoying because I am very strict at labelling everything, but my plastic labels have gone a bit brittle lately, so I suspect it's snapped off and gone missing. Back at home, I've been making these wooden labels which just seem to last a little bit longer and are less likely to break, and I think that's what we're going to do here on the allotment as well. Make the labels bigger, more easy to see, but make them last a little bit longer. Usually I like plastic labels because they do last for quite a while. Wood can rot quite quickly, so I've always been hesitant about using wood, but I think moving forward, certainly on my bigger plants, wood is going to be what we use as it's worked so well back at home. Now, of course, everything continues to be very, very dry here, and I'm having to give everything a very, very good watering. Luckily, as I've said time and time again, the straw mulch is coping with the worst of it, so a lot of my plants are actually coping quite well. I know I've spoken a lot about the straw mulch this year, but for me it has been such a big lifesaver. It really, really has. And along with that, my cabbages and all my brassicas for that matter. Last week I mentioned that I'd continued removing the caterpillars off the leaves. Well, this week I haven't had to remove any because there are none. I can see there's some eggs which I've squashed, but there are actually none in the way of caterpillars on my brassicas. So it just goes to show that picking them off regularly makes a big difference in tackling the caterpillar numbers. So I'm very happy with that as well. It certainly does look like everything is moving on. Now, following on from that, what I've also been doing this week is planting out some more plants. And this is a bit of a risk because it means that I do have to water them in well. These are going to be some cucumber plants I've got left over. Maybe a little bit too late, but I've got some empty spaces and I just want to fill up any empty spaces with as many plants as I possibly could. And then I've also planted out some more leeks. Now, the leeks I've planted out over the last couple of weeks have grown very well. They've established themselves pretty well, so I'm happy with that. And I just had a few more leeks that I wanted to go into the ground. Now, leeks for me are a staple. They're a crop that we have to grow, especially to get us through the winter, and they're delicious at the same time. So I've been planting out more and more leeks. I've pretty much got 2 entire beds dedicated to leeks, which I'm not complaining about in the slightest, because I think that will give us plenty of leeks throughout the winter, assuming of course they all grow and they all grow strongly. Now, what I did last year, and I'm planning to repeat this year, was alongside my leeks I sowed winter tagettes, a type of green manure, but it's also a legume. And what I found last year is I produced some of the best leeks I've ever grown. So I'm thinking this year I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm not going to sow the winter tagettes just yet. It's a little bit too early. But what I found, where I grew some winter tagettes last year, there was some that have continued to grow. I cut them all down back in March, but some did continue to grow. And because I like the flowers and things like that, I thought I would leave them. And they've actually produced some seeds. So I've gone around picking off some of those seed pods in order to try and save my own winter tagettes seeds. Now, this is going to be a bit of an experiment. Because we've got 2 beds of leeks, I'm going to sow some winter tagette seeds that I've brought in and some of my own saved seeds and just see if they have made a big difference. I'm also probably going to, in the 3rd bed, plant some more leeks, thinking about it, and then not have any winter tagettes in there and just see how much of a difference it makes. I think it will make a difference. I really do think it will make a difference. So it's got me wondering. But at the end of the day, saving my own seed is something I'm trying to do a little bit more of. I found it to be quite difficult back at home, saving seed from our brassicas, because the plants are big and take up a large amount of space. But if there is anything I can save seeds from, then I'm going to be doing that more in the future. So it's been a really productive week down here on the allotment once again, despite the sun, despite the dry weather. I'm praying we're going to get some rain soon. I've got this week off work, so I'm going to be down here every day making sure that plants I've planted out get watered in and established. So that will keep me very, very busy. Anyway, it is now time to head on home and talk about our book of the month. In the meantime, let's find out what's been going on in the kitchen this week.
Chopping all the veggies, sizzle in the air. Chef's got with the magic, smells are everywhere. Water starts to boil, onions hit the pan. Recipe of the week, let the feast begin. Cooking with Chef Scott, flavors come alive. Tune in every week for a tasty bite.
Now, this week's recipe, which is of course on theveggrowerpodcast.co.uk, is one that uses tomato and basil, both of which we are harvesting in quite large quantities at the moment. This week it is a very simple recipe as well. It's roasted tomato and basil pasta. Really simple to do and really tasty at the same time. So preheat the oven to 200 degrees C or 180 degrees C fan, which is gas mark 6. Put around 500 grams of ripe tomatoes in a roasting tin with 3 or 4 peeled garlic cloves Add a teaspoon or two of olive oil, a pinch of salt and plenty of black pepper, and roast for 25 to 30 minutes until the tomatoes have collapsed and begun to caramelise. Meanwhile, cook 300 grams of pasta in well salted water. Always worth just saving a mug of the cooking water and then drain out the pasta. Crush the roasted tomatoes and garlic in the juices and then stir that through the pasta and loosen with a splash of that cooking water. Then we tear in a generous handful of fresh basil and finish with some grated hard cheese such as Parmesan or a plant-based alternative, and then just give it an extra drizzle of olive oil. This is a really simple, inexpensive meal, but it is ideal for that glut of homegrown tomatoes. And I do like my simple recipes at the moment. It's also very healthy as well. So go give it a try and let me know how you get on. Now, throughout July, I have been reading The Gourmet Gardener by Bob Flowerdew. Now, this is a book that I have had on my shelf for quite a while. So it's not a book that is new to me. It's certainly a very old book. It's certainly of its time. And if you've never heard of Bob Flowerdew, he's a very well-known and respected organic gardener. He was talking about organic gardening before it was even a thing. He's also a regular member of the panel on Gardener's Question Time on Radio 4. And I actually think he holds a lot of weight when it comes to vegetable gardening. Now, the central idea of his book is wonderfully clear. Just grow for flavour or freshness or pleasure, rather than just simply chasing the largest possible yield. This is something that I aspire to myself. I don't see the point in growing a load of courgettes, for example, if we're not going to eat them. I want to grow for flavour and freshness, but also in order to provide food for myself all year round. Now, Flowerdew does draw on his organic growing experience to cover vegetables, fruits, nuts, herbs, salads, and there's even edible or scented flowers. So there's a wide range of topics that he shares with us. And it's also, he discusses varieties that are worth seeking out or techniques for just getting the best from demanding crops and ways to preserve the harvest. Now, Bob Flowerdew is well known also for being a bit of a skinflint, I think it's safe to say. He does like to recycle, he does like to upcycle, he does like to save money where he possibly can. And this is reflected in his book. It's not about spending loads of money to get the best possible crop. It's about just growing the best with what you have for the best flavour. Now, one thing I particularly like is the encouragement to think beyond supermarket standards. Now, a crop can earn its space because it tastes exceptional. It may be hard to buy fresh in a supermarket or that variety has particular character. That's why Bob has created this book. It's richly illustrated, just full of detail, and it's got a depth that I think may feel dense for a complete beginner. It may be a bit too advanced for complete beginners. But for experienced growers, I think it's a book that can be dipped into repeatedly just for a few ideas. Now, some advice in this book does reflect the period in which the book was written, and that may not be relevant these days, but its core message does feel timeless. Careful growing and harvesting at the right moment can create food with flavour that shops struggle to match. So my verdict is that this is an inspiring reference book for the grower who wants the kitchen to guide what they grow. Like us, we want to be able to eat the food, and that is the principle of what our garden is about. Now, throughout August, the book that we're going to be reading is The Plot on the Hill. And this is written by my good friend Aid Sellers, and we're going to hopefully get him on at the end of the month to talk about their book. Now, this book is a children's story set on a magical allotment where Hornbeam, an enchanted guardian living beneath the shed, must repair the carrot patch after a ragged robin causes havoc. It's just a simply charming way to bring together gardening, wildlife, imagination, and just the pleasures of being outdoors. We're going to read it throughout August. I'm going to share you my thoughts, but I was also very lucky to be invited to the book launch for this. So I'm very, very happy with this book. Looking forward to reading it. I'd love to see what you guys think on it as well. Now, before I go, please leave a rating and review on your podcast provider. We've got no new reviews to read this week, but I would love to hear from you. It really does help shape this podcast as well. You can also comment on the blog post over at the Veg Grower Podcast, or you can leave a voicemail through our website over at theveggrowerpodcast.co.uk, or you can email me, richard@theveggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Now, please also consider becoming a member of the Veg Grower Podcast Supporters Club. We've mentioned that earlier in this podcast, but it really does help keep the wheels on this podcast running. And also, don't forget to follow me on social media. We're trying to do more on social media. We're always trying to do more on social media, so a bit of encouragement just goes a long way. Well, that brings us to the end of this week's podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, please take care.